Only Tanya, nobody else is interested. It's interesting. But Tanya, you are great. I'm speaking to one of
Tanya.
You know her?
Yeah, she's my PhD peer.
There we are.
You're also from Marilyn's lab?
Yeah. But I've just started.
We're on record.
Camera space and please listen to your supervisor only. Don't listen to me. That's good. Well, so time to start?
Yep.
Thank you, and I apologize too much, Nikolai, for you today and tomorrow and every day. So, but Tuesday, you just go home and forget about it. Well, for today, what I suggested to the organizers agreed, because the idea of this school is also capacity building. The topic for today and continuing tomorrow is introducing cultural historical genetic research methodology. How can it inform research in education and in psychology, I should add, or discovering cultural historical research methodology for education research. You can make a choice. You take the title 1 or title 2, up to you. So I give you a freedom. So, and of course, in 1 hour and in 2 hours, it's quite difficult to explain all the details. So this is the list of publications all related to this. And some of them are already in your files. You have the folder concepts and methodology there. So the others are not there, but if you see all them here, you can go to Nikolai's Academia EDU, and they are available there. So today will be just an introduction, followed by some examples. And I just want to focus on these questions. First, why cultural historical research methodology? Why we are seeking for this? Why we are not happy with the classical traditional research methods like observations, video recording, interviewing? What's the reason? Why we have to change the focus? Are we not happy with the classical methods? Yes, we are not happy. And then I will tell you why. So this is the requirement. If you are doing a research, serious research with theoretical framework as cultural historical theory, you should use the experimental genetic methods in your empirical study or experimental study. This is formulated in the form of the requirement. And I'm going to explain why this is a requirement. Of course, it doesn't mean that you cannot do your research having cultural historical and theoretical framework and do research without any cultural historical research methodology. It will be accepted as a journal, it will be accepted as a book, but this will be not cultural historical research. Okay, so then I'm going to tell you what is this experimental genetic methods and what is this cultural historical genetic research methodology. And the last is how we can apply this to our concrete research program. I will give you several examples of research of my PhD students and research I was involved as a chief investigator, just as a kind of example. So how this works and what we can do using this methodology in our research, concrete research program. And I hope your task is just to think about that. And then after you finish your PhD, then you can come to this later. Because your PhD is under the supervision of your supervisor. Please follow your supervisor and do it. And then when it's all done, then you can, I'm looking at my colleagues, established researchers. So if you're interested, you can start with it immediately, just from tomorrow. Oh no, but read these papers first. Okay. Why cultural historical genetic research methodology? Why this is the methodology we always should use when we selected to use cultural historical theory as a theoretical framework? Because of the subject matter. What is the cultural historical theory about? What is the subject matter of the cultural historical theory? I ask this question. I hope I have an answer from you. What is, Samran, you know, what is the subject matter? I mean, what is the cultural historical theory about? What this theory studies? What? Development. Good. But development is just a process. We should identify what develops, right? Development of what?
Higher psychological.
Good, perfect, yes. Yeah, and as Vygotsky identified, it's not me, it's Vygotsky identified. He said that the process of development of higher psychological functions of a human being. This is not Nikolai's interpretation. This is absolutely what Vygotsky said. If you don't trust me, send me the email. I will send you the quotation with the reference. I just put it in a simple way. So, and because the process of development is the subject matter, not the phenomena, observable phenomena, because the process becomes the subject matter. We cannot use traditional methods of data collection because they are data collection focused on the observable phenomena. And because we have a different subject matter, the process, we have to find a different method of analysis, of collecting, because the process is always hidden. What we can see is various phenomena. They all are, of course, related to the process, but the process should not be reduced to the phenomena only. That's why the requirement is that if you are taking theory with the subject matter of development, you have to use the methodology which is designed to study the development. If you are using cultural historical theory to study the development, but in your experiment you are using classical methods of collecting the phenomena and making patterns, there is no consistency. You are using the big king's stamp for cracking nuts. You don't need cultural historical theory at all. There are many other fantastic theories which help you to understand the phenomena, patterns, all these things, okay? Yeah, you might say, oh, Nikolai, it's too radical, too dogmatic. Yes, I have to be dogmatic. I strongly believe that the method should correspond to the thing we are studying. We use telescope to study stars, we use microscope to study small things. The tool, the research tool should correspond to the thing. It's very easy, nothing complex. I'm trying to make it simple. Okay, so, and then I want to introduce you to people call it Nikolai's mantra. Nikolai's mantra. Nikolai's mantra is, human mind is historically rooted, socially constructed, and culturally shaped. If you like this mantra, you can take this mantra and you can say, Om Mane Padme Hum, human mind is historically rooted, and so on. If you don't like the mantra, just forget it. Okay. Coming back to the point. What does it mean to study the process of development? Development is a process, yeah? You know, yeah. You know, yeah. What does it mean to study the process of development experimentally? We can do this using different ways. For example, I can give you an example because it's very easy. Does it look familiar? Developmental milestones? Can you recognize this kind of thing?
Yeah.
At certain age level, there should be developmental milestones, this and this and this and this. Huh? In different curricula, we have different milestones. But I mean, the idea is like this. Or this. This is also from the framework. I don't want to tell you which framework it is, but growth refers to increase on physical size of the whole body or parts like legs, arms. It's simply a quantitative. Why? Because you can measure weight, you can use how long the legs are. Development, they say, refers to progressive increase in skill and capacity of function. And it's a qualitative change in the child's function. That's very easy, but as you can see, it has nothing to do with quantity and quality. Dialectically, I mean. So this is very simplistic understanding of development, of quantitative and qualitative. The only difference is that this is about body and this is about mind. But what is interesting, it can be measured through observation. I don't think we can measure quality, especially by observations, but we trust this. Yes. Very easy. That's hundreds of thousands of papers published about that. In all psychology.
That's what new parents ask.
Yeah, yeah.
Check the box.
Yeah, absolutely. You know the story. I don't need to tell you the whole story. But Vygotsky's answer. To study development experimentally depends on what do you mean by the word development. If by the word development you mean physical growth, that's easy. But if by the word development you mean something else, it makes it very, very difficult. And this is Vygotsky's answer. This is what development is. Child development is a complex dialectical process that is characterized by complex periodicity, disproportion in the development of separate functions, metamorphosis or qualitative transformation of certain forms into others, complex merging of the processes of evolution and involution, a complex crossing of external factors, internal factors, a complex process of overcoming difficulties and adaptation. This is what the process of development really is. It's not just increasing of weight of the body. There are so many aspects, but if you look, what is the most common word here? Complex. You see complex dialectical process, complex periodicity, complex crossing, complexity. So, and to make an experimental study of this process in all its complexity needs something more than just measuring with the ruler how long the legs are and how quick the skills are. Right? It introduces the dialectical understanding. You see, it's dialectical because it speaks about metamorphosis, qualitative changes. It speaks about contradictions. Yeah? If you look here, you will find everything we discussed before the break, dialectical. So, and one more. Are you okay? Are you with me? Not too complex? So let me continue, then we will discuss all together, because when I'm interrupted, I forget, I'll lose the line, okay? Are you okay? So, and read this, written in 1928. Theoretically, psychology has long since rejected the idea that development of the child is a purely quantitative process. But in practice, the picture is absolutely different. Theoretically, we understand. Perfect. Ask any psychologist. Qualitative, say, no, yes, qualitative change. But in practice, look what he's doing in his lab.
It's all about schools.
And my question is, how far did we go from that? Are there any changes in the last 90 years? It's a rhetorical question. Okay, so, yeah, would you agree? Not easy to understand development dialectically. Would you agree?
Yeah,
it's
I totally feel.
Not easy.
Yeah,
No, I'm not
not.
saying how to understand. It's not easy, right? So, and my question to my students is that, do you know something about dialectics? They say, I know it's very, something which is very difficult, that's it. So, but you know more today. Okay, so, it's not easy, but we should. How then? That's the question. And research methodology is an answer. The only way to study development is to use cultural, historical, genetic research methodology. That's why it's a requirement. I want to explain what is genetic research methodology. First, it's genetic, but please, I don't need to explain in this audience, but in other audiences, every time I use the word genetic, they are panicking. They say, oh, biology, genes. I said, no. Genetic also means development. It's sometimes it has nothing to do with the biological genetic heritage. They say, no, Nikolai, please don't use this. I say, why should I? I said, Nikolai, because genetic destroys psychology. I said, no. What is the official name of Piaget's theory? Do you know? How Piaget named his theory? Do you know? Hey, professors, help us, we are in stuck.
It's a while since
Genetic epistemology. Genetic epistemology.
Yeah.
Meaning that development of cognitive knowledge. Yeah. So at that time, the word genetic had a clear meaning, first biological and then psychological, developmental. It comes from the word genesis, but genesis means just development. You can call it, if you don't like, you can just say developmental research method, doesn't matter. So, genetic research, why we call it research? Because this research requires a number of tools, research tools, instruments we are applying to study the process of development in a concrete experimental setting. We use them to design our experimental settings and to collect data and then to analyze the data. System of tools, this is why I call it research. And research methodology, genetic research methodology is because in doing our research, we are using theoretical framework, we are using appropriate method, which is related to the theoretical framework. So we have theoretical concepts as tools of analysis, and we have experimental tools to design the experiment. So we make a complete coherence in our research. Our research is related to the method, to the theory, and concepts, and theoretical and experimental tools are. This is what genetic research methodology actually is. But you can call it development. Somebody disappeared or it appeared, hello. Okay, so let's ask Vygotsky, let's send an SMS to Vygotsky. Hey, Lev Simonovich, can you tell us what's that experimental genetic method? Because methodology is based on that method. And this is the answer from Vygotsky. This is how Vygotsky defines the experimental genetic method, which is the foundation of this methodology. So, the method we use may be called an experimental genetic method in the sense that it artificially elicits and creates a genetic process of mental development. Due to this, we are able experimentally in the laboratory to elicit certain development. So, we have to do something when the child will begin to do something, and it will generate a micro process of development. Not the whole process, but at least a piece of it. And then we catch it, we grab it, we video this. So we want to open this process and then video this process of development from point A to point B, from one qualitative state to another qualitative state, qualitative change. So that was the brilliant idea of Vygotsky, how to unfold is a good word, unfold the process, how to make process explicitly, just in front of our eyes. So that's the kind of the idea. And yeah, so, but what does it mean to artificially elicit and create genetic process of psychological development? So what does it mean to trace the development? So for this, we need to identify some principles or requirements of genetic research methodology. For example, we have to know requirements of how we should organize the experimental settings, what these settings should include. Then, how we are going to conduct, to monitor, to how to say, to guide the process. Then, how we then are going to analyze the data. Because data collection is important, but data analysis is what we need. And that was a gap. And before we are coming to the gap, I just want to come back to dialectics. So, and we all understand now that development is a process, but development is not a simple change. Not every change is development. And now we know about it, right? Development is not just organic growth, making from simple something complex. No. What development is, dialectically understood development, is complex process of qualitative reorganization, metamorphosis of the certain system. This is the most important aspect of development. We have learned from Georg Friedrich Wilhelm Hegel that if there is no qualitative reorganization, there is no development. So, and we have learned from Vygotsky that development is a very complex process. But what might help us is that if you look on development dialectically, not from the point of view of laws of dialectics, but from the point of view of dialectical categories, in every process of development, we can identify several most important, most dialectically important aspects of the complex process of development. So, it is a complex process of development, very complex, but applying dialectical lens, we can identify some dimensions, some aspects, which are the most dialectically important ones, and study them. Through studying these aspects, we are studying the process of development. We are not losing the whole. At the same time, we are keeping the focus of some specific aspects. This is a kind of research strategy. And this is the list of these most important aspects of dialectical process of development. From the point of view of dialectical logic, the process of development includes sources of development. So, the place from where development starts, sources of development. You might say, hey, Nikolai, sources are sources, development is development. It's different. I say, no. Dialectically, sources are included in the process of development, because if you don't understand the sources, you will never understand development. Development goes from somewhere to somewhere. Sources are important. Okay. Then, and Vygotsky's answer is source for psychological development is social environment. Okay. Character of development. The character of development is two aspects, quantitative, qualitative. And Vygotsky's answer is that during the process of development, every higher psychological function goes through the qualitative reorganization. And if in our experiment we create the conditions when the child comes from one to qualitatively different, so that's the, okay, that's the development. Qualitative reorganization. Then, moving forces is one more important aspect of development. We will never understand development without identifying moving forces, which are, as you know, the contradiction of dialectical opposites. This is a moving force. Do you remember our morning's class? What is the moving force of development? Contradiction of dialectical opposites. They are in the unity, and they are in contradiction, and this is a drumming force for development. And Vygotsky gives the answer in psychology. Drummers dramas of life, micro dramas, dramatic collisions, dramatic events are the forms in which contradiction exists. Because contradiction is a collision, but our dramatic events in our life are the forms of collisions. These are social, psychological forms of existing of contradiction, which is the moving force of development according to dialectics. You see the logic here? Specific features. Historical development has its specific features, biological development also. But does psychological development have any specific feature? Vygotsky gives the answer, yes. He says that the greatest specification, the greatest specific feature of psychological development, which differentiates this development from any other type of development, is that development goes from the source of development, which is the social environment, through interaction of ideal and present forms. Only in human psychological development, there is something we call ideal forms and something we call primary or present forms and interaction. You see, Vygotsky gives answers to every most delicately important aspect of development. And finally, dialectically, development also includes results. You might say, oh, Nikolai, development is a process and results are just results. I say, no, 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 no. Results are also part of the process of development because development is dying in the result. So when there is a result, the process is there. You remember becoming something new, dying something old. So this is dialectically. But the result should be sustainable. What does it mean, sustainable result? It means that in normal situation, there is no way back. It should remain. Because if a qualitative reorganization happened, it cannot come back. So if we have a fruit, it will never come back to flower and then to the bud. So, and Vygotsky says that if at a certain period of time, the child's consciousness is reorganized, there is no way back. But if you create the conditions, and if you develop something in child, and child is using this, but if you come back in a month and repeat the same task, then you see that the child. So yeah, you have developed something, but this something stayed for a while and then disappeared. And there were no qualitative change. The results are not sustainable, I mean, not long-term. So it means that probably what you did was not, maybe it was too early to publish the paper about it. Yeah, that's a real story because in 60s, or in the late 60s in Soviet Union, it was a research by Nadezhda Nedospasova. And it was a big propaganda about that research in Pravda newspaper and everything. So that Russian professor Nedospasova critically evaluated Piaget. She overcome the bourgeois limitations of Piaget, showing that the children in a bourgeois society have limits, but our communist socialist children, because of social system of education, are much more advanced. What she did, she created a special instrument, tools. It's a kind of, in Russian, it's a relatively dynamic position. And using this, she really overcome Piagetian phenomena. She overcome the pre-operational and complete operation phenomenon. And it was a great success because children would just get rid of this phenomena, which according to Piaget are universal, unchangeable. It was a big victory of Soviet science, overcoming the limitations of bourgeois thinkers, Piaget. It was a huge, but then what happened? She was very honest. She came back to these children in a month. And they started to produce the same Piagetian phenomena as if nothing happened. Why? The results she obtained were not sustainabilism. They disappeared. So I'm not saying that Piaget was right. I'm not saying that Piagetian phenomena are universal. I'm only saying that we have to be very careful. When we have results, we need to make sure that they are really the results of qualitative reorganization rather than just something which was just to the shop. Okay? Are you okay? Can I continue? Good. So, and for me, that was a challenge because when you read Vygotsky, it was quite clear that in Vygotsky's texts, there is a lot of theoretical concepts and their relations, laws, everything there. But in his books, he only gives a very general description of the method. Very general description of the method. And I wanted to know how to apply, but general description doesn't work. I understand theoretically what method is, but how to apply? And the second story is that I tried to collect everything because he wrote about concrete experimental studies like Sakharov, so I made a huge collection, but there was no answer. So, and I tried to reread Davidov's types of generalization. But again, he gives lots of examples from concept formation, mathematics, number, but there is no systematic. So that's then I started to think, okay, I collect all the experimental descriptions, and I read and read and read, unless I took from Vygotsky all these principles of concrete organization. That's what I did, and I published, and I'm about 9 years of making a kind of promotion of this, because that was a hole here, okay? And I tried to fix the hole. That's now what they call Veresov's principles, but believe me, they're not Veresov's principles, they're Vygotsky's principles. I only learned them from Vygotsky. He didn't say about them explicitly, and I'm just a postman. No, don't. So these are principles of organization of the concrete experimental study. Never mind what psychological function you are studying. Might be memory, thinking, volition, attention, doesn't matter. So these are 5. So, and when you use cultural historical theory as a theoretical framework, and if you take these principles as your experimental framework, they fit together. They are like 2 sides of one coin. And this coin is called genetic research methodology, or cultural historical genetic research methodology. Methodology is not only about method. Methodology is about theoretical tools, experimental tools. Okay? I know it's so difficult, but then I will come to examples very, very, very shortly. So now my attitude to research questions. Everybody here, something interesting? Do you want to share? Yes?
I'm still processing. You're going fast.
Huh?
You're going fast. I'm still processing.
Okay, should I slow down?
No. Always go as fast as the fastest.
Okay. So, just a kind of intermission. Everybody here knows that Nikolai doesn't like research questions starting with the word how. When I'm in the panel, somebody is presenting, saying that my research questions are how. I say, if you're asking how something happens, this research question orients your mind to the description. To the description of, it might happen this way, it might happen this way, it might happen this way, this way. But descriptive methods are not real, true research methods, because research methods should be explanatory. Why it goes this way, why it goes that way. This is the point when the science begins. To describe how something happens, you don't need any theory. You just look and then collect the data. It might go this way, that way, that way, that way. Good, perfect, perfect. But still, if you really seriously use cultural historical, we have to start with a what question, not how, what. For example, what is the higher psychological function I'm going to research, to make a research? Is this memory? How the child is coming from natural ways of memorizing something to the cultural? Is this thinking? How the child comes from everyday concepts to scientific concepts? What develops? Thinking develops. We might think using everyday concepts, and we might think using scientific concepts. It's not about to know the concepts, it's about to be able to think using these concepts. This is the answer to the question. What develops? Thinking develops. Okay? So, okay. And the second is, which aspect of development is in the focus of your research question? Is your research question oriented on the sources of development? It means that you are looking at the social environment of the child, how social environment works as a source of development for this particular child in this particular situation. Might be good. Or you are looking on the character of development. You are focusing on what happens with the child when the child begins to use the cultural tool and make a change from natural forms to mediated. Might be your focus, and this focus is developmentally important and dialectically important because. Or you might focus your research question about the specifics. What are the ideal forms around the child? And how we can change the ideal forms to stimulate, to motivate the child present form to activate development. Or what we can do to support the interaction between ideal and real. You see how many interesting research questions we can put. And compare these research questions with the how questions. You see the difference? Okay. It's a very good methodology. Huh? It just helps us to study development. Okay. So, but of course we have how questions. But our how questions are not about how something happens. Our how questions is that how we are going to use theoretical concepts as tools for analysis of development. Okay. But still, I don't like the how questions. But sometimes we need to ask, yeah, how we are going to use the concept of development to study the private speech. How we understand the private speech as a intermediate stage, right? So how questions are not about what to study, about how we can apply something. Okay, so, and if we appropriately select from the concepts we are going to use to find the answer to our research question, and if we appropriately select the experimental principles, then altogether it creates our research strategy for this particular study to answer this particular research question with this particular child or children in this particular environment. And okay. And now, today, I just want to comment to two Vygotsky's principles. It's not Veresov's principle. So the first of them in the list you see here is the principle of the paths of development. Okay, so how this principle is related to theoretical concepts. Development is not a linear process. In every child, in every adult, there are different functions. Some of them are already developed. They are fruits of development. At the same time, there are some functions which are not completely developed. They are still in the process of development. And there are functions which are just at the beginning. For adults, it doesn't look like this, but in children, it does look. So if you look on the tree, there are stage of buds, stage of flowers, stage of fruits. But if you look on the child, you will see there are at the same time fruits and the flowers and the buds. Fruits of one fruit, flowers of another fruit, and the buds of one more another fruit. This is the picture of the child development. This is what makes the process complex. So, and Vygotsky was using this metaphor: buds, flowers, and fruits. This is a quotation. It's not, again, Nikolai's interpretation. Okay? So, and therefore, because of this, my research question is not just what psychological process, what psychological function I want to study, but I have to answer on which stage of development this function is. Because if the function I'm going to study is already developed, fruit, I cannot make an experimental study, because in an experimental study, I have to organize the process of development. But if the function is already developed in the fruit stage, doesn't make any sense to it. Okay? So, on the other hand, if there are no even buds, how can I, what I'm going to support? So, this principle helped me just using classical methods to identify in this child, in these children, in this type of children, in this group of children, in these environments, in these social situations, there are functions which are just on a flowers, on a embryonic. Then I say, okay, that's it. I have to find where the buds are. To develop the fruits, as a gardener, I have to find where are the buds. If I find the buds, then I know what I'm going to do just to help the buds to be fruit. But if there are no buds, oh, sorry. Okay. So, and the question is, where are the buds? where can I find it? It's not a metaphor, it's a concrete. So, and the answer is zona proximal development. Zona proximal development is a very strong theoretical concept which helps me to understand where is the territory I can find the buds of development. And I have a gift for you. So, my gift is that everybody knows this definition of GPD from Mind and Society, 1978, page 86. And this is the only available definition available in English. So, and we all know that it is badly translated, but we all are waiting. Where is the correct translation? People are discussing bad translation of this, but they're not giving us a correct one. Do you know what I did? This is my translation from Vygotsky's original formulation on the zone of proximal. This is a definition. This is a gift for you. And you see the difference between the original and the translation. For example, the child solves under the guidance of adults and in cooperation with more intelligent groups. And under the guidance and cooperation. Translated, adult guidance or in collaboration. Option one is adult guidance. Option 2 is collaboration. Because he said, under the guidance and in collaboration. Huh? Just very simple. And or doesn't make any sense? Yes, it makes. Huge, right? Okay. The distance between actual developmental level as determined by independent problem solving. Determined by, so it doesn't mean that independent problem solving determines the level? Does it mean that the thermometer determines the weather? You might say, no, Nikolai. In English, determined means defined. I say, yeah, but it also means the principle of determinism. And I can interpret this way, because you see very exact definition being translated now opens the door for different interpretations, even the stupid ones. Determined. But why the first level is determined by and the second is determined through? What's the difference between to be determined by and to be determined through? And the last question is, who determines? Who determines the child's levels of development? Here, Vygotsky definitely thinks about, with the help of the task, the teacher or researcher or the scientist or the parent comes in order to determine, to identify, to find the child's level of development. He or she is using this with the help of the task given to the child, and the task solved individually, or the child solving the task in cooperation. And so he is somebody who is identifying this. Here is what determines what. You never know. You might say level determines task, task determines level. You can interpret this way, that way, that way. You can interpret and or lots of, and you see 100 different interpretations of ZPD. There is no one researcher who agrees with others about what ZPD is. Of course, if you have such a translation, I can interpret anyway. But if I have this, okay. This is what Vygotsky says. It's like a gardener who should not only determine the fruits, but also the buds, potential fruits. Because internal state of the whole development is when there are buds which are in the nearest future will become flowers and fruits. Coming back to the idea, to the process of development. ZPD is the concept which orients my mind to look on the process of development. What are the functions which are in the process? Again, all the time, to the process of development, to the process of development, to the process of development. It's not about knowledge. It's not about more knowledgeable other. It's not about skills. It's not about ZPD in bicycle riding. No. It's about psychological functions which are in an embryonic, in a bud stage of development. And levels of development, when the child can solve independently, indicates these functions. And Vygotsky gives an answer. The level of actual development indicates already developed functions, fruits of development. So the task is just an indicator. And the level is the indicator. But what is important is not an indicator. What is important is that what this indicator indicates. Right? Would you agree? And the level of possible development indicates the level of development of psychological functions which are at the beginning of their development. What is important is not the indicator, but what is important is that what this indicator really indicates. And this is what Vygotsky says. Clearly saying, and please, people, don't misunderstand me. So, yeah, but people are very creative. They don't read. They just imagine something. Okay. So now I'm back to the question. Where are the buds? As a researcher, I want to know where is the territory, where is the field? But the answer is here. So there are processes that are now still possible only in a sphere of relationship with others and in cooperation with the people. The fruits of development are in child's mind, right? That's why the child can solve the task individually, independently. But the buds of development are not in child's mind. The buds of development are in a sphere of relationship with others. They are social. This is the place the buds are. As a researcher, I have to understand that if I want to find the buds where they are, I'm not looking on the child's mind. I don't need to use the tasks the child is able to solve individually. I'm looking on the tasks the child is able to solve in collaboration with the support and the guidance. Because these buds, tomorrow, metaphorically, will be fruits. What is on the potential level today, tomorrow will be on actual. These buds will become fruits. And this principle of buds of development orients me, the researcher, to look, to make an analysis of the child, to find in child social interactions with adults, in play, in family, with teachers, others, things which are in the embryonic stage parts. What the child can do individually, but can do with the support in collaboration and the guidance. Okay. Now I want to show you how the principle of bud works for you to understand better. So I want to introduce my collaborators, my beloved collaborators. Dr. Mary Hammer from Monash University, and now Dr. Victoria Minson. She's going to graduation December 13, and of course I will be there. So she is now doctor, and she is now very, very, very popular. She published, and we published the paper together. Okay, and so it was not my research, it was our research. So they are my co-authors, and I'm their co-author. So, and I wanted to share with you. So now, Lloyd, please don't make pictures about that because of the ethics.
I was trying to get the previous one. But
yeah, but it's okay. This one, okay. Okay, this absolutely okay. Okay, so this is the girl called Eve. Of course, it's a pseudonym. It's not a real name. Well, this is a show and tell. You don't need to explain what show and tell is. It's a kind of quite typical. But I want to tell you that Victoria's dissertation was not about ZPD. It was about developing a new tool matrix, which is called PAN, Planning and Assessment Matrix. But this was one of the small pieces of the big, big project. Okay, so don't think that all dissertation was about Eve. No, no, no. It's nothing. So look at this girl. So she's trying to make a show and tell with the monkey, but she could not. She just could not. Felt very confused. And teacher was trying to say, okay, tell me about the monkey. What's the name? Chica. So, but it's very, very limited. She could not tell any story about the monkey. And it was, for her, it was a very unpleasant situation because, okay. And so, and we noticed that moment. We did not create it specially. It's in everyday so-called natural settings, but they are not natural. What we call natural settings are not natural because toys are not natural. Kindergarten is not natural. It's not like stone and trees. It's very, very cultural settings, by the way, but it's okay, natural, okay, the usual. So we noticed that moment. So what happened? Why this girl could not tell a just 3-minute story about the monkey? What might be the answer? Might be a million different answers. Why? Okay. For example, it might be she has problems with speech. Might be she has problems with the memory. Might be her thinking is not well developed. Or might be she has a communication problems. Or might be she don't know how to tell a story. And the list is open. You can put 100 possible questions. What might be the problem? But in fact, this is not a problem. This is just an indication of the buds of development. And how we tried to use the principle of the buds of development. What we did, we wanted to see what Eve can do in collaboration with others, not alone, because here it is alone, in collaboration with others, or under guidance of more competent peers. And do you know what happens? We have noticed that this is absolutely amazing girl. She's 4 years old, moved to Australia 6 months ago, lived in Jakarta, Japan. Frugent storytelling in small groups about whole life, living in Jakarta, school, sister holy, visiting library, favorite movies, cultures, everything. Telling knock-knock jokes, demonstrations, demonstrating of dances. Talking about sophisticated topics like history, for example, Voyagers, hula girls, Bali, Union Jack, Pompeii. Wow. Yeah. You see? Does she have any problems with memory? She still remembers her life in Japan and Jakarta, telling the stories. I think no. Any problem with thinking? Pompeii, Union Jack, Voyagers. Sense of humor. It's about speech. Come on. She speaks, she's very talkative. Where is the problem then? Why then, having all these, she could not tell the story about the monkey? Huh?
She has never seen a monkey before. She didn't know.
Oh no, it's a monkey she brought from home.
Oh.
Okay, show and tell in Australia is that you have to bring something from home and tell a story about it. Okay. You see how the principle of the buds of development protected me from making wrong conclusions about her. As a researcher, I see the problem, but I want to find where are the buds. And the answer is that her storytelling abilities are in the embryonic stage, because she can tell a story in a dialogue. When somebody is participating in building the story together, she is okay. But when she needs to reproduce the story, certain story alone, she cannot. It's absolutely indication what the child can do in cooperation with others, but the child is unable to do being alone. This is how the principle works. It points me, Nikolai, look here, look here. And it gives me kind of idea, what can I do to help this potential to become a actual? Because I know where are the buds. Eve's buds, not my buds. Her particular buds are there. In collective storytelling. Say, okay, I have to start from buds, and then I have to create the conditions, these buds to become fruits. And I know what are the buds, and I know where they are. It's very good for me as a researcher to have a clear answer to this question. And all this because of the principle of the buds. Okay, so, because it's Theosipide. She cannot tell stories alone, but she can create stories, long stories, in communication, collaboration, doing something together with others. Absolutely fits, yeah? Okay. So, and the buds are in the sphere of her relationship with others, her relationship or her collaboration with others, particularly in storytelling abilities. Okay. My second example is from other research. There is a fantastic researcher from Saudi Arabia, Vala Mandiri. She also used the Vygotsky's principles. Don't call them Veresov's principles, Vygotsky's principles. So her research was about second language in Saudi schools, English as a second language in Saudi schools. They started 3 or 4 years ago because of the government. They started to teach Saudi students from the primary 2 lessons a week about English. And what government? Saudi government is very strong. Saudi government is very demanding. Saudi government wants the generation of Saudi people being able to communicate and to speak English. Okay? And Bala said that, okay, this is language acquisition. Of course, when you study English, you have to have a language acquisition. You have to know the words, terminology, grammar, vocabulary. Of course, you have to know. You have to know that. Okay? But to be able to speak English, you have to develop your speech, English speech. But English speech is not the same as knowing words. Huh? There are different things. Speech is a high psychological functions, which begins from communication, then it becomes private speech, then becomes inner speech, then becomes thinking. And the highest level of proficiency in English is ability to think in English. Huh? That was her idea. And she said that in Saudi classrooms, teachers are not creating the situations of collaboration, communication, where the children can improve their English speech. What they do in the classroom, they're just repeating, they're just drilling something in English, which is good for language acquisition, but which is not good for developing ability to speak this language. And these are examples. For example, so they are naming the pictures. This is Andy, this is Pat, this is Bob, she is dead, he is happy, he is hungry, she is thirsty. Yeah, that's sarcasm, drilling. Or using the same but moving. Or just making pictures about this is my dad. Or this one. You see, there's different methods. Just singing songs, using CDs, smartboard. It looks very, very contemporary, very modern, very advanced. Wow, we have different methods. But all these are about repetition of some phrases. It's not about communication. But you know what happens is that there's one story told by the teacher. The question was, do you think learning English through interaction is helpful? The researcher is asking. The answer is that only one time in a year it happened that the child was given a task in English and the child was not able to solve the task in English. That's why the child should do it in cooperation with the other child. The task was very easy, just to go to the office and bring a piece of job. During the whole year of studying English, this is only one time when teacher really creates the bud, the area where the buds are. Because this is the only time when teacher was communicating with the girl, giving her the task. The girl could not solve alone, but could solve in collaboration. The buds are here. But after that, teacher did nothing to help these buds to become fruits. Buds appeared and then died. And that was a research of Vala. And Vala is now suggesting the changes in the national curricula in Saudi Arabia. What should be changed in order to support not only learning acquisition or language acquisition, but development of English speech during classes. Short dialogues, playing roles, new words immediately introduced into the meaningful exchange of things. So this is because you are only available to speak English when you're available to first to communicate with somebody. That's what happens when the children are coming from another country. Nobody teach them how to, they learn how. They are playing together with the local children and they communicate. First using signs, then more words. This is what happens in real life. And children, immigrant children, they might have no idea about English grammar at all. But they speak, they communicate. Sometimes even grammatically correctly. Huh? Okay, so do I still have time? Brendan, do I still have time?
It's more than an hour we allocated, but I don't think enough lights.
Huh? Sorry,
Keep going.
okay.
Yeah.
So, and now I want to introduce the second principle, which is related with the first one. Not all principles are interrelated. So I call it the principle of category, but category might, for some people, categories, yeah, but so we can call it the principle of collision or the principle of dramatic event, drama. So, and again, this principle, the second one, event, it also has a theoretical background. It's not a wild fantasy of Nikolai. It has a very deep theoretical roots. And this is the root, is that processes might be analyzed, and through analysis, the true relation that lies at the base of the process, behind the external form of their manifestation, must be disclosed. True relation. What does it mean? There are some psychological processes, but what are the true relations? It looks very vague, you know. But nothing is vague. Because it's strictly connected, directly and strictly connected to the general genetic law, which is the fundamental law of development. And of course, everybody knows this. Page 106, volume 4. Okay. Every function in cultural development appears on the stage twice. First, within the people as social category, then within the child. So, yeah. But I don't want to give you an example how this was translated in mind and society. Just check, and you will be surprised about. This is the just if you have time, just open Mind and Society and check, compare. You will be very much surprised. So, but the point here is that high psychological functions are not appearing in social interaction, not in social relations. High psychological functions are internalized social relations. They are not in social relations. They are social relations internalized. You don't believe this? You don't believe me? Okay, believe Vygotsky. This is a very clear telegram. Every higher mental function was formerly a social relation between two people. You don't believe me? You don't believe Vygotsky? But that's what he said. How's possible that high psychological function was a social relation? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Surprise, surprise? Surprise, surprise? No? No surprise? No surprise, good. Okay. But doesn't mean that every social relation is a higher psychological function, of course. It should be a specific type, a specific form of social relation, which is becoming internalized as a psychological function. And Vygotsky says that this is a category. But one of the meanings of the word category is dramatic collision. So every higher psychological function before becoming internal first exists internally as a dramatic collision between the two people. And because of this, it becomes internal higher psychological function. You don't believe this interpretation? Okay, let's send a telegram to Vygotsky. So, which means that in experiment, we have to unfold it back to its initial, to its first form, which is drama that occurs among people. Their first form of existence. So they appears on the stage twice. First as a drama between people, then within the child as internal higher psychological function. Vygotsky speaks about drama, that directly. Okay. You don't trust? Okay. Concrete human psychology. Another book of Vygotsky. The basic principle of the functioning of higher functions, which is the personality, is social. Interaction of functions in place of interaction between people. They can be most fully developed in the form of drama. Okay. Not every social relation, but special type of dramatic social relation, challenging social relation, experienced as internal drama might be internalized as a psychological function, might or might not. There is no automatic thesis. So without internal drama, internal category, such mental changes are not possible. Dramatic factor of development through contradictory events, actual development, category. This was Vygotsky's formulation and hypothesis. And this, for us, it's very, very simple because we know that contradiction is a moving force of development, right? Okay. In which form contradictions are in our life? They are in the forms of social dramas. And we are trying to find a way how to resolve the drama. Then this generates the whole. This is the engine of development. It's a very dialectical idea, and directly relates to laws of dialectical opposites. For us, no surprise, of course. Okay, so the dramatic event is that primary form, the first stage. So the buds of development exist in a form of dramatic. So, and this principle orients my mind as a researcher, not just to look on the social environment of the child, but to try to find the dramatic moments in child's life when there's not only just interacting with people, but interactions including small dramatical contradictions, collisions, how the child is trying to overcome this. With the help of others, in collaboration, under guidance. So, it might be real life situations which happened in real life of the child. And Eve was doing that. Or might be specially created dramatic collisions. For example, in play world, we just arrange play world in such a way that the children following play plot, they are stuck in a collision. For them, it's natural. For us, it's very well engineered and designed. Or as dramatic story narratives, as Pentti Hakkarainen and Minna Bidikku did. Many ways. So, these are small dramas, transitions from interpsychological to interpsychological. And if we are collecting data, if in the data collected, we focus on these small dramatical collisions, then it gives us very rich information about where are the buds of development of the children. So we are making 5 hours observation, but then within these 5 hours, we select 5 minutes when the child is really experiencing dramatical And you say, this is here. This is the first stage when the function appears. Function appears twice. First, between the people. And here is this. Absolutely concrete here. Okay. Coming back to Eve. This is a dramatical. This is a drama. This is a drama for her. Okay. And this gives us very, very important information that Eve has a buzz of development in collaboration with others. And she is experiencing this external drama and internal drama. This opens for me the territory to focus at what we are going to do to help Eve to move from buds of development to flowers and then to fruits. Using principle of drama, I can identify these particular moments in child's life which are potentially important, gives me opportunities to support, to artificially elicit development, which what Vygotsky wanted. Okay? Well, and that's what we did to support Eve. I will tell you tomorrow, because we didn't live here alone in this drama, of course, it's really not human. So, but I just wanted to share one more research about that. This is my colleague, Fabiana Nastucci from Brazil. She was working with me for some time, and she did her research in Brazil. She got a PhD in Brazil. Now she works in Canada. Yeah, she did a very good PhD, and she just moved to Canada. But her study was about professional development of school psychologists in Brazil. Well, not about children, about adults. What she did, she was a teacher of so-called professional development program. And what she noticed is that the teachers are coming with very pragmatic ideas to sit, to listen, to learn something very like students, But she said that, okay, professional development. What is this professional development? To give them new methods, new tests, or give them something. But what about personal development? What about the development of how they position themselves? What are the psychologists at school? And she decided to rearrange the whole program. And she built a program of professional development with adults, school psychologists, based on building, especially creating dramatic conditions during the... She asked them their professional dilemmas, their dramatic events they had in school that she collected and she presented to them. So this is the real world we were working with. And she initiated the discussion. They didn't expect that. They were ready to just listen to the teacher. They were not absolutely ready. And by doing this, she generated lots of dramatical collisions because they didn't. And we published this. You can read more. So this is interesting. One of the participants responded. You see, my intention was only listening and absorbing knowledge. That was the intention. But then she came to the conclusion that observing is not enough. We must participate. Good, okay. And then it was uncomfortable for me at the beginning. Yeah, it was uncomfortable because discussing the dilemmas they are emotionally involved is not always good. Okay. So, for instance, we got a little bit lost. Of course, they tried to escape around it. And then it was a moment of to rethink the group focus. They started to think differently about it. And how good it was, she says. Of course, it was not good at that time, but now she understands how good it was, the change of. And this is interesting. They define it as a cathartic moment.
So what's developing there?
it's their personal development as a specialist. They begin to rethink what is the purpose to be a psychologist at school, how to position yourself as a psychologist who understands other personalities rather than just testing, measuring, so and therapeutic moments. Okay, so they took it as a kind of treatment because of tears, because of so. And look, she says, this group was remarkable for me, and sometimes I find myself thinking about our discussions, and I read the text we discussed again, and I still keep learning. So she is now reading the texts, not by her own eyes, but by the eyes of the whole group. From social to individual. What was on a level of collaboration now is becoming a community. This is what happened. Through dramas, they build the buds, and they come to the flowers.
So you mean the drama is actually the condition?
No, it's not a condition.
Drama
is the source of development, not a condition. Condition might be weather conditions, temperature conditions, but drama is more than condition. Much more. Okay. So, and these are 3 examples of different research in relation to principle 1, which is buds of development, principle 2, which is the principle of drama. So now I have to stop myself by now because it really becomes too much, Nikolai. But I hope that it was, the name of Vygotsky was named much more than Veresov. That makes me happy. Okay.